Hi world. So this is where I'm at. Whew. Well, I know all of you guys only come here for astute observations that have been made for the first time in human history, because that's what I dish out on this channel. And to that end, time moves so bizarrely these days. It's so weird. Part of me can't quite comprehend that a week has passed, and part of me can't quite comprehend that we're almost done with February. We've gotten a good chunk out of 2021 out of the way already, and it just feels so weird. I'm reminded of this fantastic documentary called The Fear 13, which is just if you haven't seen it, go watch it. Do yourself a favor. It will impact you if you have a soul. I'll put it like that. But one of the earliest things, the subject of the documentary mentions, it's about his time in prison. He used this metaphor of looking down at his wrist, and instead of seeing a clock, it was a calendar, and every second just whooshed, 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 another page was being torn off. But when he then looked out the window, it still took all day for the sun to set. This almost paradoxical experience of days feeling long where months feel short is one I can relate to. Probably like that for everyone experiencing lockdown, but I think it's exacerbated by my mental struggles. So I got to play some D&D this past week, and it just scratched that itch of human contact again. It was like not having noticed that you're thirsty, but then being handed a glass of ice cold water, and that feeling of getting a need fulfilled you had actually almost forgotten existed. Just that was amazing. Other than that, I have been playing secretary to my wife. She works from home, helping with tracking outbreaks of this here corona. Oh, and we hosted a couples dinner yesterday for some of the people in our bubble, which was again just that itch of social needs being scratched was just delectable. Oh, so good. I should also probably put the cards on the table and say I had a little too much wine yesterday night, meaning, well, I'm not hungover. I don't get hangovers. I'm basically an X-man in that sense. But I am tired because I sleep very poorly. Everyone sleeps poorly when they have been drunk. So I'm sleep deprived, and I am also exhausted from having kept up with Ring Fit. Really proud that I haven't skipped a day yet. I thought I would have at this point. So go persistency. I talked to my parents as well, and I have secured some money with which I can see a shrink. So the goal for next week is finding one and then making sure that I obey all the commands that the municipality has sent my way, that I may continue getting the funds to pay my rent, because I'm a huge fan of staying in my home. That's just tight. So yeah, surprisingly, still events to talk about, even though a lot of our lives right now just involve fusing together with our couch and trying to mine Netflix and Disney Plus for more stuff to see. But you know, we're hanging in there. So from there, here's something that makes me happy. This one might sound a little weird, but I love notebooks. They just fill me with such immense joy. And I have a fair amount. These are not all the notebooks I own. This is just a collection of notebooks currently in use. Most of them related to tabletop RPGs, which you will remember if you've seen this this vlog from the get-go. So I got this Warhammer one for the campaign I run in with Jens. Quick shout out, he has a Instagram called Downpour Dungeons. So I now have 18 subscribers I can ask to go join this amount of people. You're fucking welcome, Jens. But yeah, dutifully keeping this thing mapped out and keeping pristine notes. Also, you can, I don't know if you can actually see that, but oh, no, those are a blank page. But yeah, this is my handwriting. It is not pretty. It is hideous. It is hideous. But another thing I do like about keeping physical notebooks is I'm trying to get my handwriting to a place where it is legible-er, which is also immensely soothing, I find, is trying to delicately, gingerly improve my dexterity so that I can write, maybe even someday, who knows, draw a little better. Activities that forces me to slow down probably helps with the stress-related factors to my condition. This one was for originally for a campaign that my friend Eric ran, but that ended up dying, so now I use it as the notebook for one of the D&D campaigns that I run. Now, the one drawback to notebooks is that you don't have the same amount of control for where stuff appears that you have when you're writing on a Word document. So I have sometimes had to cut pages out of this one, so it appears in the correct order, and then I've made this here little booklet, The Drop That Contained the Sea. I don't know if you can actually see that. The light is a little tricky here. See if I can. Yeah, which I'm very proud of, and I look forward to be able to actually run this dungeon for someone at some point. So hopefully one of my players will bumble into that thing at some point in the future. This one is my favorite notebook so far, and sadly I forced myself to use it because I saw, it was on Facebook, but I saw this post from Tumblr that basically went, if you really want to torture any kind of writer, give them a really fancy notebook, because they will keep that thing forever and just keep waiting to get a new idea of what to use it for, and no matter what they come up with, they will always go, no, that idea is not good enough for this fancy a notebook. And upon reading that comment from Tumblr, I was furious. I was simply thinking, how dare you notice that? That is so rude of you. I got this from my sister for my birthday. It has magnetic clamps right here. It has this beautiful, let's see if I can, beautiful edge on the back. It looks pristine. So I decided just to make this a gathering of random adventures that anyone can go on in any D&D campaign. Not tied to anything specific, so I always have something I can put in here. Which is why this is the Book of Adventure! Now that I have taken you through a tour of my notebooks, which I kind of feel like is the equivalent of being shown other people's vacation pictures now that I think about it. Hope you're not too bored. I guess it's not a bad idea to then talk about why notebooks make me happy. And I just love doodling in them. I love the calming feeling I get of actually writing something down in hand. I feel a different kind of energy come over me when I'm writing in hand as opposed to a computer. I don't mind writing on computers. In fact, for many things I prefer it. It's easier to read because you don't have to see my hideous handwriting. I also like that I can edit way easier. Sometimes I realize, oh no, I fucked this sentence up. And even when it's just notebooks like this that only I'm supposed to see, strictly speaking, I am a bit of a perfectionist, so I will try to fix all of my mistakes. I love blank notebooks, just empty notebooks, because they have this potential about them. Anything could fill them. Anything could end up filling these pages. I also think they get a certain aura about them after a while. We moved, my wife and I, quite recently. It was this December. IKEA shut down, so a lot of our stuff is still in boxes right behind me. And there are more books and more of my notebooks. And one of them is a notebook from when I directed Much Ado About Nothing, which I think I've mentioned earlier. And I get tremendous joy just from pulling out that notebook and then see where I was at different points in the process of making that play. It's funny to be able to visit my own thought process and see what was I thinking at this point, what was I thinking at that point. Essentially, it's a way for past me to communicate to future me. Now, I wasn't actually writing down in that book how I am feeling or how I'm doing, but I get the sense of this echo of my past self talking to my present self, which gives me a certain sense of continuity of how I am developing and changing, which is always useful if you want to get perspective. And perspective is especially useful when you're trying to figure out how to make your mind gooder. But yeah, when it comes to what makes me happy, what about notebooks makes me happy, it's another case of I can go on all day talking about this. I think they're pretty. When they're empty, I love the aura of potential that they're overflowing with, because anything can happen within them. I love buying a notebook for a specific purpose, because I am very careful in making sure that this seems like it would fit it. This was originally written as a bestiary for a game where we were hunting supernatural creatures, and it felt like a notebook that would suit that purpose in the real world. One dealt with essentially an urban fantasy sorcerer's game, and again, it has that, you know, dark, secret, leathery feel to it, but it's not an old notebook because it's in modern times. So even that is an aspect I enjoy about notebooks, and I love filling out my notebooks. I find it soothing, and I find that it forces me to work in a tempo that makes me feel better, both in the moment but also about the process of whatever creative project I am engaging on. I've also kept diaries in this way. I have managed various projects using my notebooks. So yeah, both in terms of pragmatic purposes, in terms of sparking raw joy, in terms of getting a feeling of a sense of contact with my former selves. It's something that just keeps sparking various forms of joy in me. So yeah, it's something that makes me happy. Something that's really tough when it comes to dealing with mental illnesses, it's the mistakes you make in the beginning. Because, as long-term viewers of this channel will know, I have a fair amount of experience, not necessarily dealing with this myself, but also seeing other people deal with it. And quite interestingly, I find that everyone deals with their mental illnesses. Really want to say mental illness. Welcome to the mind of a languager. But everyone makes the same three-step process, consisting of two mistakes and then the correct choice. But even though I've seen everyone do this, I'm just going to talk about my experience here, because again, everything I've seen is purely anecdotal. So here is my experience that I just so happen to have seen mirrored many a time in other people, almost without fail. Oh, actually, scratch that, without fail. The process is that I felt sad. I could feel this sorrow inside of me, but I didn't feel like I had the right to feel sad. I didn't feel I was allowed to feel sad, because I know of so many others who are way worse off than I am, so how dare I think I am worthy of having this emotion. So the first thing I did was try not to feel that sadness that my depression brought about. Which, of course, doesn't work. That's not how feelings work. They don't go away because you deny trying to feel them. They only get stronger that way. So that was the first mistake I made. The second mistake I then made was, I can't stop feeling this sorrow, so I need to stop the emotion from appearing at all. And this is where the bad coping techniques enter into the picture. I had to struggle with some video game compulsion. For example, I also had a habit of just falling deep into other kinds of entertainment, be that books or TV shows. using that as a form of escapism. And there's nothing wrong with some escapism, but it's a matter of doing things in moderation. And I was trying to deal with my emotions by not dealing with them, by essentially trying to make sure that this sadness I felt didn't get a chance to creep in, because I was too busy being distracted by something else. Of course, this doesn't work either, because escapism is temporary. Eventually, we all end up back in reality again. So after you try not to feel your emotion, or rather, after I try not to feel my emotions, after I then tried to stop those emotions from arising at all, I finally went to the third and correct choice, which is actually feel them and work through them. And this is also when I started seeing my first therapist, which was immensely useful. And the first meeting I had with her was really demonstrative of how much I needed it, because she just started with asking me how I'm feeling, and I started talking about how I was feeling, and I started crying. I had no idea that would happen. And as I kept talking about how I felt, I cried more and more, and it just felt so cathartic to finally talk about myself and how I was feeling and actually engaging with it. Now, sadly, that was only the first step, and it's the first step I've had to engage in multiple times at this point, which I wish I didn't have to, but hey, I'm only human. But yes, these are some of the mistakes I have made. I think they are perfectly natural if you are struggling with mistakes of this kind yourself. I really don't think there's any reason to be ashamed of it. Again, I've said this before, but I think it's really useful to see mental illnesses as living things that are trying to keep themselves alive. And they don't get to stay alive if they prompt behavior in you that deals effectively with treating the disease. Another thing about it is also the fear of when the floodgates finally open. I tried to stay away from my sorrow, not just because I felt I was unworthy of it, but because I was scared of it. I feared the pain. A good way of putting it is these first two steps, where you first don't feel your emotions, or at least try to, and then you try to distract yourself from emotions for a while. It's like being in a cold pool that you actually do want to swim in. Like, many of us have tried dealing with that temperature shift in various ways. Some wait out and then suck in some air before going for a dive. Others just wait out deeper and deeper to gradually go in. And others still just go straight for a plunge into the cold water. And the reason I think this is a really good metaphor is often, now granted, varying for degrees of temperature in your metaphorical pools here, but often it is not nearly as bad as you have made it out to be. Every single time I've been scared of my own emotions and been trying to run away from them, when I've then finally let go and actually felt them, yeah, it has been painful, but it has always been worth it. I've always felt this sense of catharsis rush over me after it was done. I have felt noticeably better after after I had talked to either a therapist or a close friend of mine about how I was feeling and what I was struggling with. And that's another thing. When it comes to, like I said, this is two mistakes and then the correct move that everyone seems to do. When it finally comes to the third step, I cannot emphasize enough how necessary it is to actually talk to someone else. For me, anyway. I have found that I have a hard time actually engaging with my own emotions if I am just to sit down and then think this through and feel this through. It's not like I'm even holding back at that point. I am just trying to dig into whatever I'm feeling that's negative in this moment and trying to unpack it so I can work through it. But it's like I can't do that until I put it into words for another person, which is why even having a bad therapist it can still be better than no therapist at all. Again, varying from degree of bad therapeuting here, but just having that process of talking to someone else who listens and in that way being more directly forced to deal with what you're feeling has been immensely useful for me in terms of just discovering the depth of what was in my mind that was gnawing at me. So yes, that is a path I've gone down. That is a path I've seen many go down, and sometimes takes longer than others to go past those first two mistakes. I do hope that talking about this will help some people deal with this in the same way that everyone ought to deal with cold water in a pool they want to swim in. Just dive in. You don't need to make those mistakes of gradually going there. Now, if you can't, if you're not ready, that's fair. But in my experience, engaging with this is always worth it. And for me, it has been the inevitable end point whenever I've been trying to run away from problems like this. So yeah, that's what I have to, that's all I got to say about that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for staying through this nonsense of mine. I still feel so tremendously honored that so many of you are taking time out of your day to listen to what I have to say. Even when it is something as silly as why I love notebooks. Like I said, I'm gonna do at least 2 more episodes before I take a break, and maybe I'll wrap this vlog up at that point. We'll see how I'm doing at that time. But no matter what, for the time being anyway, I'll see you around, world.